Hello, everyone. Welcome to the FAIR Institute webinar on the new era of cyber risk management. We're going to talk about insights from the 2025 State of Cyber Risk Management Research. My name is Todd Tucker. I'm the Managing Director of the FAIR Institute, and it's wonderful to have you all on today. I will moderate a conversation today with our panelists. We have Matthias Bucherol from Heidelberg Materials. He serves as the group CISO for that organization. John Sapp, CISO of Texas Mutual Insurance, and Ben Moreland, the Risk Practice Director for GuidePoint Security. I'll also point out that Matthias and John are members of our board of directors, so it's wonderful to have you two on. And Ben with GuidePoint. GuidePoint is an advisory partner of the FAIR Institute. So Ben, thanks for supporting the research and being on today's webinar. So welcome all. Just to set things up, one of the things that as we talk about this research, the way we define cyber risk management, I think, is important. I think a lot of folks, when they hear cyber risk management, they can generalize that to imply cybersecurity generally. But for the purpose of our research, we defined it as you see in the quote here, which is it's the process of identifying, assessing, measuring and mitigating risks associated with the use of information technology to protect an organization's data systems, operations, and brand reputation from cyber threats and vulnerabilities. Yes, that's a mouthful, but I think that context is really important, that this was a focus on risk management, not cybersecurity more generally. And I put a picture of the risk management process from ISO 31000. That is also pretty much the same as what you'll find in ISO 27005. And I just think it's important to understand this is what we're talking about. We're talking about that process for managing cyber risk. The research then that we did, we employed a third party called Hanover Research to reach over 400 security leaders, risk leaders, and others from industry. We applied fairly strict criteria. This was a choice we made in the survey design, that we wanted to get feedback from professionals who were directly involved in their CRM program, in the execution of that program. We wanted respondents who reported that did not report, I should probably clarify that they have no cyber risk management capabilities. There were some that would respond that way. They were disqualified. And then finally, they were required to pass a simple knowledge screener just to ensure that what we're talking about in the context of cyber risk management was consistent with what they had in mind. As a result of that, what you'll find and what we'll talk about today is that the sample we had, the results that we get from our data, reflect a higher maturity than you would expect to see from enterprises generally. So just keep this in mind, that we're looking at the state of cyber risk management as evidenced by programs that exist and that have some degree of maturity. So let's jump in, and we're going to talk about some of the individual findings from the report and really just get perspective from Matthias and John and Ben about these outcomes. And the first one we'll talk about is the business case. In other words, why invest in cyber risk management? And what you'll see there with the findings is that the top four, when respondents were asked to select their top three, the top four of those, you'll see alignment of cybersecurity with business priorities, greater risk reduction for the organization. Interesting that that was number two, not number one. Optimize cybersecurity spending, and then improve credibility of the cybersecurity team, kind of reflecting the relationship with the rest of the business. So John, I'm going to direct the first question really at you, which is because I know, and having known you for a little while now, you and Texas Mutual, you've been on a cyber risk management journey for several years. Can you talk about an outcome that you've either seen or achieved, something that reflects the business case for cyber risk management?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on, and this is a great topic to discuss. I think the number one, as much as I see that number one item is alignment with business priorities, to me, that's been something that's just been table stakes from day one in this role. So, not that that's not important, but I think it's been the number one outcome is, to me, the second item there for us. And it's been about risk reduction, putting things into business risk context so that when you look at the number two item just below what you've got highlighted there, increased trust of the internal business partners, that is what folks are looking for. Because when you think about and I love the definition, by the way, in the way this was framed up, because it is not just about cybersecurity, but also the use of technology. And that's all risk that we have to provide some degree of visualization for the business to understand, because you think about technology outages and the impact they have on the business, in that achieving cyber resilience by giving them business risk context and also helping them understand the business risk impact. Because at the end of the day, cyber risk is business risk.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Let's talk about risk quantification for a moment. It's something we talk about a lot in the report and that we ask questions about. But how do you see that risk quantification plays a part in that, communicating business risk?
I'll tell you, it's absolutely critical. It's great that this conversation is happening right now, because just yesterday, I had a conversation with our leaders for business continuity and disaster recovery. And they're talking about business resilience. I'm talking about cyber resilience and how those two play off of and support each other. And that's really the key, is being able to justify not just my investments into cybersecurity and protection of the technologies that we use, but also supporting the business case for those other key associated initiatives in the organization. So I think when we think about just that next item outside of the outlined items circled there, budget justification is key, because now we're in a time where we're seeing budgets being cut across the board. And, when, they come to me and say, okay, well, you're not exempt from budget cuts. And I understand that, because it is about being efficient and effective with the resources that you have. It is, how do we do more with less? It's kind of a continuation of that. So being able to better justify the investments that I have, but also why there's a need to increase spend, at least somewhat incrementally, because now I can point to what risk we're going to identify, what risk we've identified, and how we're going to mitigate and manage that risk.
All right, that's great. And that's a topic we also are leaning into, is how do you use risk quantification to justify investments. A lot of it is kind of, I think, somewhat, tip of the nose obvious, but there's a lot of nuance to that. And I think it's an area worth exploring. Matthias, you're the newest, or one of our newest board members. You joined in the last couple of months. And just one thing I want to, kind of hear from you is, why is fair-based cyber risk management important to you? What kind of outcomes do you see are driven by, the approach to quantification that we take?
Yeah, first things first, Todd, thanks for the introduction. I really love here the collaboration already in the board. Also, thanks to John for your insights on the first question. So what do we want to achieve? So to frame it, like in a nutshell, we as Heidelberg Materials, we embarked on the CRM and especially quantification journey in 2023. So I would say 2 years, quite young in the discipline. And we want to achieve the next level of maturity, I'd say, by more formalization, as well as, harvesting the benefits end to end with a very good model, which is globally adaptable, because we're operating in 51 countries. And, you have to have a framework and tell people how does good look like, and how do you perform those assessments and get the right data in. And in overall, for us, it's very interesting to pivot even more from feeling decisions to data-driven decisions, which help, to get bias out of the room, as well as, I'd say, also push more intrinsic motivation on business owners taking decisions deliberately. Because sometimes, when you're in like a qualitative program and you measure low, medium, and high to scale it very easy here, and you present business owners which have billions of business in revenue responsibility with like the risk is medium, it's very hard to understand what that means, right, in that terms. And this is why, we are very deep into these topics, and we have like kind of the thing we do first in Heidelberg is we crawl before we run. So we did a lot of hands-on stuff, really methodology, pure play. And now, formalizing more and scaling out globally, not only one KPI for the whole company and the security initiatives, also for each country. And we're really hoping to get good standardization and adoption around that.
All right. Yeah, fantastic. I'm going to move us on to the next topic. And Ben, I'm going to throw a question to you here in a moment. But let's talk about the research around FAIR itself and what the results of the survey showed. And one was, as you can see by the chart on the left, that the use and awareness of FAIR among this, sample that we have was about half, when you look at it. What was maybe a little surprising to me was the very high awareness of FAIR. Only 1% reported that they were not aware of FAIR. The others, they were either aware of it, using it, or planning to use it. So that was one finding. The other was just that when we looked at outcomes and we looked at things like greater risk reduction, improved credibility, optimized cybersecurity spending, the things that we really just had on the previous chart, and we looked at who was most successful with those outcomes, it was the same ones that were very successful with FAIR. So there's a correlation between maturity or success with FAIR and the outcomes that we're talking about. And so, Ben, you see a lot of clients in your practice, and so you've got a nice, kind of cross industry perspective of this. What do you think FAIR is bringing that might, drive this kind of outcome?
Yeah, we work across, various sectors, industries. GuidePoint has customers of different sizes. And before boards were asking for cyber risk data, before the third-party breaches and the major data security incidents were calling CISOs to the carpet for accountability, I think there was just a driving desire to communicate effectively. So if you're a security director or a security manager and you have needs, you want to make investments in your security program, you have a desire to protect the data, to protect organizational assets, storytelling, being able to communicate is paramount to getting what you need to achieve those objectives, to help support the business objectives. And so what's driving it is a better way to communicate risk. That's what FAIR is making easier to communicate this risk in a way to prioritize investment, to prioritize business needs along cybersecurity investment. And FAIR has really that risk in terms that board members, chief risk officers, chief financial officers understand. So I think that adoption of FAIR, that awareness that there is a standard around it, has grown because of that.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, Ben. One of the stories I love to hear, speaking of storytelling, is the CISO at Washington State University shared recently in one of our forums that when he started and his team started using FAIR and quantifying risk in financial terms, it changed the conversation with his business partners. And these are like, the CIOs of the different colleges and so forth, the folks that, he's helping secure their businesses effectively. And he said, when you put it into financial terms, it changed them from seeing security and security risk as a security thing, and now seeing it as a business thing. And it changed the accountability, which I thought was just terrific, that kind of change that happens just by reframing risk. Let me ask you all. So, when we look at FAIR and again how you apply it, let's talk about some of the challenges when introducing FAIR-based analysis to non-technical audiences, whether it's your business partners, line of business leaders, or it's legal, finance, the board. What kind of challenges do you see with that, and how do you see it helping there? Maybe, John, Matthias, let's go to you two on this. John, start with you. Oh, hey, John, I think you're muted.
Yep. So the first thing is they don't quite understand it. So I think what you have to do is actually develop an elevator pitch for it, because it's a lack of understanding. Because the first thing they think is it's smoke and mirrors. It's just another framework that you're throwing at them. They feel like, you're just spinning their chair around and trying to confuse them to try to get them to agree with whatever you want from them. But it's being able to put it into finding a common language to be able to have the conversation. And that financial terms is a common language, because you think about it, every executive, every board member understands a financial statement. Mm-hmm. Hands down, that is just an absolute must. And when you're able to put it into that context and help them understand it from that perspective, now they understand we're doing nothing any different with the quantification and financial terms of cyber risk than they are in terms of the risk to achieving their revenue goals and objectives, and or their sales, whether it is delivery of X number of units or whatever it is, whatever that corporate strategy is. We're also supporting corporate strategy, and being able to put it into those terms is key, because that is the number one challenge, is just a fundamental lack of understanding of what is it.
Yeah. Matthias, what are your thoughts? I think we got a delay going over to Europe. Matthias, can you hear us?
I couldn't agree more, John. So I talk it a little bit of board member speak, right? And there's a lot of discussions all around the. Can you hear me?
We can. Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can.
Uh-oh. So we lost Matthias. Hey, Ben, there's a question in the chat or in the question list. And given your background, having spent the early part of your career in the military and mission-oriented organization, obviously, the question from a gentleman here is, how can FAIR be made relevant to the government where dollars don't necessarily resonate like it does in the private sector? What are your thoughts there? I mean, how do you link it to the mission, and how can maybe a FAIR model be applied that way?
That's a great question. So, yeah, coming from the government background, coming from the military, it does all link back to the mission. So what FAIR does enable, even of risk in quantified means, is that it can translate. So the business very often cares about dollars, right? But those dollars really often are around mission objectives. So if you're looking at your 10K and your 10Q statement, and you're looking at how they talk about financial risk at your organization, that's great. But also go back to kind of the Simon Sinek quote, which is start with why. How does managing risk support those objectives, right? Maybe it's protecting customer data. Maybe it's helping ensure that you're able to produce content and get it to your consumers. Maybe it's providing a high quality product, to your buyers. Whatever the mission of your organization is, you can tie risk management back to protecting that mission. So I was on the SIGINT side of naval operations. And SIGINT we were all about protecting our people, protecting the mission, protecting the assets. And cybersecurity, risk mitigation, risk management is all about dealing with uncertainty. So I think even if you're talking risk quantification in dollar terms, you can still tie it back to the mission, to the vision, to the objectives of your organization. And how does risk management support support those objectives.
Yeah, great. We're tackling this in a public sector interest group, and Tom, maybe reach out to me, ttucker@fairinstitute.org. I'd love to have you join us if you're not aware of that, because that's something I think we need to tackle: is how do we apply the methodology in a mission-oriented kind of way, and it may mean again using data around non-financial measures. Sounds odd for FAIR, but the FAIR model, a lot of it with the left side is all about probabilities of, events occurring. And on the right side, where we have dollars, we could also have other things that we measure, not just in dollar terms. So I think we could drive some better thinking on that topic. Matthias, obviously we had some issues there, but now it looks like we have you. Do you mind? So I'll actually redirect just the question, if you don't mind. So a gentleman asked the question, could you give an example of a simple message that previously would have been put into cybersecurity terms, but through FAIR is changed into financial risk terms? Just something to kind of show maybe the difference in language that you use when you translate a kind of technical cybersecurity thing into a more business-centric one.
Yeah. I hope now the delay is good and you can hear me loud and clear with the reconnect.
Yep.
Oh, that's amazing. Love it. Yeah. So let me get an easy example to you, which I can share with you what's changed in the board of directors, also on Heidelberg level of managing board executive management. Let's talk about vulnerabilities. I think a classic technical CISO would go for presenting to the managing board a burn down rate of vulnerabilities and telling, hey, we pivoted from 80% vulnerable system to 20% vulnerable system. So this would be a classic term which is used in cyber, right? Where you can, okay, that's fine, it's going down, that seems good, gives a good feeling, but it's not really relating to business, right? So the cyber risk quantification piece or cybersecurity term on, let's say, money burn down would be our risk in the period we are reporting to regarding our attack surface was at 6.5 million, and we brought it down to 4.5 with an investment of 1 million. This means we got 50 cents for the dollar, but we hope to go for 10 cents for the dollar. So even more cash out with the invest. So see it like a profit and loss function. Profit on one hand side is your risk burn down in million euro. Loss is your expenses you have to carry for that. And you should always aim for at least 10 cents for the dollar. We are even aiming for 5 when you do those measures. And this is resonating quite quicker. And when you yourself then check on your initiatives and see this mapping between cash out and risk burn down, you will also realize, oh my God, I think we are over-investing in our risk or in our vulnerability management program. So this gives you a different feeling also to judge very specific topics in cyber, like with one KPI. And this is really, really massive, and you can reallocate investment because budget is always stored, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, thanks, Matthias. Let's move on to our next topic here, and that is technology as an enabler. And the thing I'll just kind of lead in with this is FAIR has been around for a long time, over 20 years. Jack Jones wrote the book about 12 years ago or so, the original book, but the discipline he built had been, maturing and growing since the early 2000s. A lot of it, the time was spent on the, enablement of people to estimate risk and to use a lot of the wonderful tools around, calibration of estimates and using ranges and using the statistical models. And those all still absolutely apply to everything that we do. But we're now seeing a lot more technology use. So you can see here that, the degree of system automation as maturity in CRM, as self-reported, goes up. The use of automation goes up again as self-reported. And then when we look at the differences in some of the outcomes, there's a marked difference between those that automate more fully versus those that use just partial automation. So I thought those findings were very interesting, and just in general seeing more use of automation in this. And so my question, I'm going to direct this back to Matthias and John, to the two of you first. How are you both using automation, maybe even AI, but just automation generally, to either streamline or scale cyber risk management? And Matthias, maybe we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah. So honestly, we are at the beginning of this journey, I'd say. As I said before, we started in 2023, looked into methodology, pivoted the whole reporting in a direction, and now, embarked on the product journey, because you can see it's working and we want to enable people like with a risk as a service approach around it. And we will see in Q1 2026. I'm happy to share with you. But as I said, aim is really risk as a service, strong objectivity with human in the loop. This is our target around, let's say, technology and cyber risk quantification.
And Matthias, can I just ask, what kind of capabilities are you looking for when you look at automation in this realm?
Yeah, definitely. I would say I'm looking for the capability, or let's say the outcome of objectivity. So this is super important for me, because this is, driving a different, when you do an Excel based, you can use the full FAIR methodology and drive it to an Excel-based approach, right? Mm-hmm. Then you don't get objectivity. We are operating in 51 countries, 51 nations, multiple cultural differences, right? And when you would judge risk and file such things, you don't get objectivity also when you put it together. So for me, automation is like using data signals as well as pulling data together. Besides firmographics and human in the loop, is giving me objectivity, and this is what I would be looking for.
All right, great. Great. John, how about you? How are you approaching automation of CRM?
So, gosh, I've been doing this with automation since 2015. So, and, where I first learned about, what Jack Jones was doing at the World Economic Forum 2015, and where really kind of this journey started for me. And, everything, there was beginning of, kind of some tools on the market to try to do things. And there was, another methodology out there that, didn't survive. But, what technology and enabling this approach has done, because I worked for Accenture Security for a number of years, and witnessed where they were using Excel spreadsheets to do this type of activity. And it was a very tough sell. And so automation enables us to be able to leverage the telemetry of data that's available to us to have that data-driven approach, to be able to create models and scenarios in a way that are really allow us to be better, more efficient, more effective at arriving at a result, or doing simulations and things like that. And being able to integrate with our other security technologies or our performance monitoring technologies. Because one of the things that I look to do and have done here recently is integrate all of those scanners that we use to collect vulnerabilities, whether it be from the infrastructure or from applications, from the configuration of our cloud environments, all of those different things, the performance of applications, the performance of our technology platforms, because they all, to a point Matthias made, there are signals, and those signals are data, and that telemetry of data and being able to bring it together in a way that gives you traceability to understand when, where, and how the impact could be based on the probability of an event occurring, or thinking about it from a technology outage type standpoint, or the probability of success of a cyber attack because of a combination of vulnerabilities and or weaknesses, misconfigurations, and things like that. And also being able to leverage threat intelligence. So being able to bring all of those things together, that is, to me, the key. And that's where technology really enables that. And then we talk about applying AI within that automation. Now you really can increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of what you're doing. And so, because you think about it, it's an opportunity. And I think that's what technology as an enabler gives us.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, a question just came in. Crystal's asking, a lot of CRQ platforms can feel like you plug everything in and look at the numbers, but the data can be misleading or misunderstood because some areas may be more covered or less so. I guess the question to me is like, how do you, when you're looking at a tool like, for cyber risk quantification, how do you get confidence in the numbers that it's reporting, the outcome? And maybe John, you probably have a good perspective on this, and then Ben, I'll go to you.
So just kind of, sorry, can you repeat that question? I'm just kind of formulating a thought around it.
Yeah, so you talk about using telemetry and the data coming into the platform, and it's obviously it's more than the human mind can probably grok. But how do you get confidence? How do you trust the output? How do you say, you know what, it's reporting as quantified risk those are numbers that we can trust?
Well, and that's always the first question that everybody asks. I mean, I had a CFO in 2015. That was his first question. How did you get these numbers? How do you know we can trust those numbers? And that's where I think the technology itself, the validation that you get when a solution gets built, you've got to trust something somewhere. So, you as you vet out these solutions that you're utilizing, it's understanding the level of validation that's gone into it. Because with an Excel spreadsheet, I couldn't trust those numbers for anything, because if a formula was wrong, the amount of time that it would take to try to validate and figure out where that went wrong. But I think it is, you have to take a degree of error ratio with it, just like with anything when you're doing any type of quantification where numbers are involved. You've got a plus minus error ratio, right? And so there's a tolerance that you have to assume with it. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, you have to have the ability to configure certain factors in terms of the applicability of impact to a subsection of, let's say, insurance industry in my case, because we're a workers' compensation insurance company. So, we don't necessarily take the impact to be the same as the broader insurance industry. So we tweak factors. And so by providing visibility into how you're adjusting the calculation to fit your organizational tolerance and appetite, allows you to put some trust into the numbers, because now you can understand how you got there. But I think the ultimate key is knowing what information you're starting with. And I always require the business to give me certain information. I get the majority of the information from either my audited financial statement, because I'll find a lot of the information there. What's our revenue by business unit and all the different ways. So you get the business to give you the information that goes into the calculator, because, we've all come to trust a calculator, 1 + 1 = 2. So, this is no different. This is our version of a calculator to calculate the number that we're trying to get to. But we do have to temper that with an error ratio of, I'd say, ±2 when you're thinking about it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Ben, I want your perspective on this too. You GuidePoint, you not only do a lot of advisory work, you implement a lot of tools. And so you probably get this question, right, of how do we trust the data? How do we know it's, something that we can defend? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah. I study computer science. I didn't study mathematics. I didn't study accounting. I'm not an actuary, right? I'm also not a lawyer, but, I trust the people that are lawyers, that are actuaries. The people that have built these models, they have this background, let's say in modeling, simulation, and analytics. So when they built the FAIR model, they built this taxonomy, they built this ontology, knowing that it was going to be built upon mathematics, right? And then I also trust it because it's a heck of a lot more effective than low, medium, high, critical, finger in the air, subjective risk management. It's not perfect. As he said, it's going to give you a range and probability. So you might say, instead of saying to the business, there's a high risk we're going to suffer a ransomware attack in the next 12 to 18 months. with cyber risk quantification, with the FAIR methodology, you're able to more effectively say there is an 80% probability that in the next 12 to 18 months, we have a likelihood that a ransomware attack is going to cost our company $3.5 to $4.5 million, right? That's a lot low, medium, high critical. The second thing I'll say is risk managers, as leaders, I like to use the late, great Colin Powell, and he had this idea of the 40-70 rule around decision making. And it was essentially that when faced with a decision, you should gather between 40 and 70% of the available information. More than 70% can lead to analysis paralysis. So that range gives decision makers a balance between having enough information to make an informed decision and not getting bogged down in excessive data gathering. So you have a range of information, you have probability, you have statistical analysis, you have Monte Carlo simulations, and that gives the decision makers enough information to make an informed decision. It's not perfect, but it gives you that confidence that you can make an informed decision.
Yeah, that's great.
Matthias? I love the question, by the way. Yeah, I love the question because I had the same question to myself as I looked and was touched like with those products in the market. And this is why we chose also the direction in Heidelberg Materials to start with methodology and really make, let's say, calculating by hand and not just losing it like in a black box. You drop things in, you get a number out, you believe it, you want to verify, you want to see what's going on. And what we did is we did the full FAIR methodology, pilot countries. And the beauty is in some scenarios as a production company, we know how the peril looks like in losses, right? You have an idea. Then you use the FAIR methodology, you put in this data, you see, okay, this number is fitting. It makes sense for you because you think about it, okay, this is from firmographics perspective, that's good. And as we started in end of 2024, beginning 2025, to assess products around it, to build this risk as a service and scalability away from like hands-on calculation and methodology, we use those numbers because there's scenarios where I can't make sense of because I don't have the data, so I don't have an idea, but there is where I have. And where I have those scenarios, we compared the outcomes of different platforms with data. We fed them and said, oh, look, this makes absolutely sense. There's like a deviation of around just 5%, which I would say is very narrow, to be honest. And then you build confidence in the model you're seeing, which is like, the check the product is doing. And this helped a lot, to say even in scenarios where I don't have the data and it's hard to verify and the calculation is more complex, I trust in it. And this helped also build the stakeholder trust into it, right? Because you have to adapt it. And like everything in life, I think one data source is not enough. If you look at self-driving cars, Waymo added LiDAR. They didn't just use like video, right? Because they say trust but verify. So you have to bring those signals together, whether it's from technical systems or it's from firmographics or compliance data you have. So very straight to the question, cyber risk quantification is not a plug and play thing like a SIM card in a smartphone and you have connectivity. You have to invest time, knowledge, train your people, as well as add additional data besides your technical signals, I'd say.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Matthias. I'll add one thing here, just because I've kind of worked in similar spaces to this before, that where data was always a challenge, especially data quality. And I think whenever you're looking at tools, the ability to go from a top level result and drill down using a transparent model like FAIR. The beautiful thing of FAIR is it's transparent. It's been in the market for a long time. It's been rigorously debated and even tested and all of that. So the model, is strong, but just when you're looking at tools that use the model, you want to be able to drill down and see where that data is coming from, what that data is. And it's important for a lot of reasons, one of which is solving data quality issues. So it allows you to identify where you have specific issues in the data quality, but it also allows you to take action on the causes of risk. If you can't drill down and see the specific, susceptible conditions, vulnerabilities, or out of compliance conditions, if you can't see the financial cause of the loss magnitude and what's driving that, if you can't see the threats that are driving the threat event frequency, things like that, then you can't act on them. And so I think it's really important that you have that transparent model, the trusted model, but also the ability to drill down. So look for that, and that will help with explainability as well. Ben, one last question on just this topic of technology, because again, you spend a lot of time with clients and implementing and consulting on their use of tools and whatnot. Where do you see over or under investment in your view from a technology perspective?
Great. Yeah, I appreciate it, Todd. The tooling, so many of our conversations start with tooling. We try to bring it back oftentimes to governance and risk management, to automate, to scale your processes. But what's important to note is if your data is bad, if your process is flawed, technology will likely amplify those inefficiencies rather than solve them. So having a good process, having a good framework, having a good model like FAIR is going to make the use of a tool much more effective. But to answer your question, where I see overinvestment is a reliance on, let's say, purely outside-in view of your cyber hygiene. It's important. It's a factor. It can be absolutely used in informing decision-making. Sometimes it's relied on solely. And so Matthias had said, look, having multiple sources, right, very important. I see organizations underinvesting and getting good inside-out data. So these tools now, right, where they're bringing in telemetry, whether it's from your network or your endpoint or your identity solutions or your cloud solutions, those integrations into your cyber risk management tools, where you're bringing in telemetry and you're layering that on top to verify, to validate the efficacy and the effectiveness of your controls, along with like, hey, what are my controls? How do they map to NIST and to ISO and to all these other frameworks? That's great. But now you're verifying it with telemetry. You're also looking at the outside. And then you take all these disparate sources from the outside scans, the inside control lists, the incoming telemetry, and then you're able to paint a much more complete and accurate risk picture, again, that enables. So I see overinvestment on like one source, whether it's outside or this is our control list or this is our SOC 2 report, and oftentimes underinvestment in getting multiple sources of data from the outside, from the inside, from telemetry to really demonstrate effectiveness of your controls.
Yeah, that's great. I think one of the things that cyber risk management should do for an organization is help bridge silos. There's a lot of silos of information and functions, even within cybersecurity. And I'm surprised sometimes at how often we find those silos don't communicate. So this forces, the communication across silos, the sharing of data for the purpose of risk management. And I like that perspective, Ben, of use the totality of the data and the perspectives that you already have. You're already investing in these areas, so put it to good use. I'm going to move us to the next topic here, and that's executive engagement. And the question here, asked who's using the information from cyber risk management programs. And what really it showed is that the executive engagement was concentrated on technology executives. So you see the CTO, the CIO, obviously the CISO, which was not number one, which is a little surprising there. And then you start to see others, risk officer, financial officer, legal, but you see the board less than half and business unit product leadership a very small number. And really, when you think about it, right, the business is they're the ones who really are accountable for risk. And so my question to both John and Matthias here is, how do you use this information? How do you keep your executive team informed, and maybe even talk a little bit about how you inform the board, how you use this information at that level? Matthias, let's start with you.
Yeah, so we distinguish as like in the States with executive management and board of directors. Let's start with executive management, also called Vorstand in Germany. So we do that on a monthly basis. And most important, I say, is really clear data, clear call to action, and lean and easy way. So no tech talk, no details, you have to have a recurring format, easy understanding to really give them the understanding of the business value of the priorities. And this is what I said before. If you talk like, yeah, we have from 80% vulnerability going to 20, this is not a strong message. When you say, the exposure rate is going down, this helps a lot in financial terms. This is what we do. On the board of directors side, we have a bi-yearly presentation slot there, where we already embarked on, I think, more than not 5 years ago, but naturally, I was amazed as I saw the fair MAM model, that those terms we have already used kind of in those loss scenarios, right? Where we say business interruption, financial fraud, and there we put very, very clear quantification into it and changes from the last meeting that you say, okay, this is why our risk has risen due to this business decisions we have taken. This pivoted our risk in this and that way. And this helps us really to align strong security strategy with those loss scenarios and give an understanding when you move business, what does this mean in risk and where do we have to pivot investments? So there's a clear business value proof of those initiatives. So if I would have to sum it up in a nutshell, I'd say towards the executive management, so Vorstand, I would rather go with a more compliance-based view coupled up with the risk quantification. To the board of directors, a very straight financial-only situation, which we embark on. And we have very good results also out of that.
Yeah,
and clear understanding.
Excellent. John, how about you? What would you add to that?
The only thing I would add to it, because I think it was very well stated by Matthias there, is that I paint a picture of what are the cascading risks that result from cyber risk. And what I mean by that is this. You look at CIO and CTO, they really care about what's the technology risk. The CFO, they want to know what's the financial risk. Legal, they're responsible for legal risk. So when you look at who owns at the top level a risk in any given domain, it's make sure that you paint the picture because they want to know what's in it for them. Why do they care? And by showing those cascading risks that if a cyber attack happens or a technology outage happens, this is the operational risk that we will incur based on, it really you really are putting harder dollars and numbers to a business impact analysis and being able to show here's the cascading risk, operational, financial, helping them understand that those actually lead to strategic risk. Because you think about, and this is one of the key points that I've always been able to make, is identifying that every organization has a strategic goal to increase revenue or sales or something, right? Well, you can't do that if you're shrinking. So if I have operational risk where I've got disruption to operations, which means now that's going to start to at some point create financial loss. So now we've got financial risk. And if I'm losing money financially, I'm impacting the strategic growth risk. So now that's your strategic risk. And to the point Matthias was making about compliance, the longer those things happen, and depending on what that outage was, if there's a disruption of service that has some regulatory compliance piece to it, or if there's loss of data or anything like that, now you start to have that regulatory impact. So that's where your privacy officers and your legal counsel and all of those folks start to care. So when you show them the cascading risk that comes from your ability to give them this picture of quantified risk, you're showing them business risk impact. And that's where I think this all enables us to better communicate and be part of that conversation.
Yeah, excellent. Hey, so we're about 10 minutes out. I'm going to move us to the next topic and kind of use this as a chance just to get some kind of final perspectives on the the topic here today with the results of the research. And it's about challenges. And you can see, like, from just this list, the challenges tend to be greatest in what I would call kind of organizational culture, support for the program. Strangely, or a little bit surprisingly for me, was the technical side of this was not cited as the top challenge. It was that it was more the human aspects of cyber risk management. So I just want to ask a question to you all, and I want each of your perspective. And Ben, I'll start with you on this, and that is, what, as you look at programs, you're working with clients, what advice, like what would be the number one or top one or two pieces of advice you would give to folks who are leaning into cyber risk management, leaning into quantification, and maybe at a somewhat early stage of doing so?
Get to know your business. What industry, what sector are you in? What do your executives and your business stakeholders care about? Because then you'll be able to translate cyber risk in terms that they understand. We should have just dropped the mic after John and Matthias spoke a little bit ago, because there's so much to unpack in what they said in terms of the value of cyber risk management, cyber risk quantification, in communicating with terms that the board, that the executives, that the audit committee, that the chief financial officer, that they understand. So we're cybersecurity people, we're IT people, we understand risk. Great. Now we have to go translate that. And to do that, you have to really understand your company, your business, your industry, your sector, your regulations. That's where you should be investing a lot of your time when you're trying to talk risk to others.
Yeah, it's great. I hear too, Ben, a lot of people in our community, that's what they struggle with the most. It's not the left side of the FAIR model about loss, event frequency. It's about the right side and understanding the magnitude, because too often they don't feel like they understand the business well enough, how to ask the right questions, that kind of thing. I love that advice. Matthias, let's go to you. What advice would you have, given where you've been over the last few years, and advice that you think would make the biggest difference? I think it's making its way. I know he's gonna. John, let's go to you for a second, and I'll message Matthias.
So very straight, I'd say it's.
Oh, I think we lost him.
We've had our share of connectivity issues. John, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
what's your advice? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the number one piece of advice I would give is, I'm going to tag on to what Ben said. There is, it's knowing your business, understanding what's important to them, and being able to ensure that, because you think about kind of how we got here as security practitioners, security leaders. We went from being technical to having to have a business acumen, strong business acumen, and now we're risk managers. So let's understand we're a cost to the business. And so how do we help the business understand that it's money well spent in what we're doing? And this is just another capability that's in our portfolio of things, but being able to show them how you're going to bring visibility to them in regards to the risk to the business, because that's what's important. Mm-hmm. Because everyone is trying to mitigate and manage risk to the business. And this is just another category of risk. You think about an enterprise risk management committee in most organizations, everyone's reporting on the risks from their respective areas. We are the one function that has a cascading impact of risk across the business. So think about what they care about, and be sure that that's how you lead your message. Don't ever lead with the technical numbers, because nobody cares. That's our problem.
Yeah.
And that's what we're hired to do. So let's do that without complaining about it. But what's our benefit? What's our value to the business in delivering this information? That's my advice: is think about what value are you delivering, and have develop a 30-second pitch for the importance of this.
Yeah, I liked your point earlier about an elevator pitch. You should have that pitch to describe what you do and why you do it. Why is the most important? Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's great. Matthias, I see you now. Let's hope the
I'm
lag
back.
is.
I promise this is my last reconnect, so hopefully the latency stays in a good way. So very straightforward. I'd say this is it's not a methodology or technical challenge you are facing in this discipline. It's more a people and process challenge, or to phrase it very bold and straightforward, this is a mindset. And this does not only, let's say, challenge you on the board of director or executive management side, it's also a challenge on the security team itself, because few fellows, in those teams, like security engineers in the SOC, they are very used to this technical stuff. And then, they are a little afraid of this, quantification piece coming up. And when you opt in for budget, I need the material loss scenario. Why can't I just build the use case, which is super fancy? So this is a different thing and a pivot in mindset, not only on enterprise risk management or executive management, also in your team. That's the first thing. And let's be honest, each real profession for me has clear metrics. When we would all be now architects and talking about the bridge, we could talk about width, span, length, This is absolutely the thing where we could imagine how this bridge looks like. If I would now take a beer with John and ask him about his program, it would take some time until we really are aligned on and can be comparing and understanding what we are doing. So this is why each real profession needs real metrics and data around it. And I can tell you the cyber risk quantification piece and journey is not an easy one, because it's multi-layered what you have to do. But please stay bold and strong. You're on the right journey, and the first step's always the hardest. And this metric and methodology, I think, is shaping the profession of a next-gen CISO, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I couldn't agree more, Matthias. I think learning the discipline and profession of risk management is essential to being a CISO in today's world. So I think that point can't be understated or overstated. All right, well, let's wrap this up. We got about 3 minutes, and we've taken several questions. Appreciate everybody's questions. One thing people often ask is, hey, where can we go for help? What can we use, in the near term? And Ben, describe just a little bit about maybe what folks on the webinar can expect if they reach out to you all. Ben,
reach out, guidepointsecurity.com. Right, a number of resources. There's ways to reach out to our account executives and our sales leaders in the different region, based on whatever your region you're in. We do a number of conferences. So, go to our website, check it out. Again, we partner very closely with the FAIR Institute. So we'll be at FairCon 25 in New York, and look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. And again, we appreciate all the support. I mean, not just the financial support for the research, but also just your input and expertise. I love this picture of the GuidePoint, team here. Just such a great organization. It's been fantastic working with you and the others at GuidePoint. Ben mentioned FairCon. So the FAIR conference, I'm assuming most of you probably know about the FAIR conference. If you don't, check out the website. We're now updating the website with our agenda. It is live, so you can go see the full agenda. You can see some of our speakers, and we're announcing more and more speakers over time. I think we may not yet have the speaker page up and ready, but you can see some of the speakers that have agreed. Matthias obviously is there, John is there, but there are dozens and more coming. Last year we had over 70 speakers of all types, a lot of CISOs, but a lot of folks that were practitioners, that were leaders of cyber risk management programs, folks from government, folks from the board of directors, you name it. So it's a wonderful, wonderful event with lots of different topics. The only such event that is focused on cyber risk management, cyber risk quantification. So you can find more information at fairconference.org. And if nothing else, reach out to Luke Bader or myself. We'll be happy to assist in any way we can. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much to Ben, John, Matthias. Really appreciate you all taking the time, but also in the process of generating the report and providing feedback on that. It was wonderful to get insights from you all. We'll do more of these where we talk about the results of the report, and we're also blogging on the topic, and you'll see things on our LinkedIn feed. So just stay tuned. But if there's something that we can help with, like I said, reach out to us. We're happy to engage in any way that we can. With that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you, gentlemen. I hope everybody that's on the call has a wonderful rest of their day or evening and weekend coming up. So bye, everyone.